currently happening in the Nashville real estate market as of the end of summer 2023. If that's something that you're interested in, stay tuned, because in today's video, we're going to be talking about what we're seeing, boots on the ground action, plus we're going to be taking a look at statistics. So all of that and more coming up in today's video. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin and I am a local Nashville real estate agent and founder of the Caitlin Martin team, powered by 𝐋𝐈𝐊𝐄 Realtors, the Andrews Group. I specialize in helping savvy sellers who want to sell right and sell smart, as well as helping out-of-staters looking to relocate to the Middle Tennessee area. Now, if this is your first time stopping by my channel, thank you so much. Please feel free to click subscribe down below so that you are notified anytime I release new video content, which is every Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what is currently happening in the Nashville real estate market. I've said it before in other videos, but when you are looking at national real estate headlines, you cannot just assume that that is true or that it's specific for each market within the country, because ultimately real estate is hyper local to its unique area. And so Nashville continues to be a strong real estate market. And here's the thing, I know that a lot of people are wondering, is the market going to crash? What's happening with prices? And so we're going to be taking a look at all of those statistics, because when you can actually see the graphs and the numbers behind it, that can really make a big difference. Now, right now we are still waiting for the numbers for July of 2023 to come out, but here's what we've seen so far this year. So we're going to first back up a little bit and actually go back to Q4 of last year. And so Q4 was a quarter where all of a sudden people kind of started wondering what is really going to happen with our real estate market, because it was one of the most slow markets that we've seen in a couple of years. If you are unaware or you haven't done too much research into the Nashville community, Nashville saw a white hot market. We started to see the trend of it in May of 2020, but come March of 2021, we watched our market absolutely explode. And it wasn't until about late April of last year that all of a sudden we really started to see things start to stabilize and start to really normalize, because again, what we were dealing with in that white hot market, and what I mean by that is that we saw inventory being severely low and yet demand was through the roof, which that's where we started to see the wild market in terms of pricing. In a matter of 3 weeks of March 2021, we literally watched our market go from maybe 5 or 10,000 over to win a house to going to 50, 75, 100,000 plus over asking, and things were really wild for a long time. And then we started to normalize, and then in Q4 we really saw the brakes, just really kind of hit to the point that we all kind of wondered what was going to happen as we headed into this year. Surprisingly though, towards the 3rd or 4th week of January, we really all of a sudden kind of started to see our spring market come in early. We were watching attendance at open houses explode, and our market started to pick back up again. And we moved right through February and March. April is when we started to kind of see a bit of a slowdown this year, which is early for us, especially with our spring market. But then we started to see some strength build back again in June, and we've seen it in July. And so, as we're taking a look at this, a lot of people have asked questions about, is our home prices overinflated? Is the market going to go down? When are home prices going to go down? And so there's a lot for us to dive into. And so I'm going to pull up statistics, and we're going to be looking at specifically Brentwood, Franklin, and Nolensville in general, comparing that to the overall Middle Tennessee market. Because, Brentwood, Franklin, Nolensville, these are typically places that people are looking at, especially when it comes to Williamson County. So we're going to be taking a look at what those numbers look like, because there's so much more than what a media headline is going to tell you. And if you're curious about what's happening with prices, of course, we have got to dive into that portion of it as well. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to pull up statistics on the computer and we're going to look through it together and just kind of walk you through so that you feel like you have a much better understanding of what's happening here in the Middle Tennessee area, so that again, you can make the most informed decision for you. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at those numbers.
Okay, so we are taking a look at InfoSparks, which this is going to be data that comes directly from our MLS system. And if you take a look down here in the corner, you'll see that these are statistics as of July 2023. The orange color is going to be the entire MLS. And if you actually take a look up here, I selected single family homes. So for the entire MLS for Brentwood, Franklin, and Nolensville, single family is selected. So as you can tell, these are the colors that indicate the entire MLS, Brentwood, Franklin, and Nolensville. So what we're first looking at is going to be sales price. Now, this is the median sales price in each of these areas. So this, and again, if you actually take a look up here, right there, this is showing us going back 3 years, but I'm actually going to change this to 5 years, because 2019 is really the year that we need to be comparing ourselves to in this real estate market, because 2019 was kind of the last normal year that we had prior to the pandemic and what that caused our real estate market to do. So we're going to take a look at this. So again, these graphs, they come directly from all MLS data. So if we're taking a look at what the median sales price is, come July of 2023, the entire MLS is sitting at $400,000 for a single family home. That's an increase of 3.9% from the same time last year. Brentwood, you're sitting at $1.1 million, again, an increase of 2.3%. Franklin sitting right there at $912,375, increase of 7.3%, and Nolensville is sitting down there at $790, and again, that's going to be at 9.5%. Now, we'll switch this over to average, because of course that's taking into account all properties, whereas the median's kind of taking out the outliers on either side and giving you that median range. So as you can see, if we go to then the average, of course, you start to watch these numbers rise, especially for July of 2023. And again, this is all for single family homes across the board. But you can see how now all of a sudden the entire MLS, we're now looking at right there around 513,000, increase of 5.8%. Brentwood sitting right there at 1,435,000, increase of 7.9%. Franklin's right there at 1,093,000. That's going, if you'll notice, Franklin, that's only an increase of 0.8% from the same time last year. Nolensville, though, continues to be on the rise, with their average price point being $875,000, and that's an increase of 12%. So as you can see, one thing that I really want to point out as we're looking at this data is we're really watching, even though we had a wild 2021 into 2022, one thing to notice is that we're not seeing a major downturn in our average sales price. So that is something to keep in mind, because when you're trying to look for indicators for a true market crash, especially here in the Nashville area, there's a couple of indicators that we need to see. We need to see prices really dropping. We need to see inventory going up significantly, along with days on market going up. So these are a couple of indicators, and we're gonna be walking through those as we continue to look at numbers. But again, you can see this trajectory. And the nice thing is, with this, as I drag it over, you can watch how we've got the statistical data for each month over these last several years. So you may be saying, okay, well, Caitlin, that's the sales price, but what is it in terms of percentage of list price? So that's something else I wanted us to take a look at. So if we go, and it's got to load the data here for us just a moment, but we want to look at what the percentage of list price is, because that is also going to be an indicator of what truly is happening in our market. Okay, so we got the data to load here. So this is looking at the median percentage of list price. So you may first see this number over here, this dark gray line, and be like, oh my gosh, Caitlin, there it is, it's dropping. But we need to actually take a look at what this is telling us. So when you're looking at percentage of list price, what the sales were for July of 2023, you can see that the entire MLS, that's again incorporating all of Middle Tennessee, things were still selling at right there at 100% of list price. In Brentwood, that steep decline that we see, it's still selling at 98.8% of list price, which is a small reduction of 1.3%. So again, we're not seeing homes taking these massive hits in terms of price reductions. You're still staying very close there to 100% of list price. Franklin, you're right there at 99.7%, and Nolensville is at 100. Now, these numbers will shift just a little bit when we shift from median to average, so let's take a look at that as well. So here you can very noticeably see the hump that we have that happened because of what went on in our market in the last couple of years. So if we take a look here, again, we got to look back at where we were back in 2019. And so if we pull that out, we can start to compare here what the percentage of list price was in July of 2019 compared to July of 2023. July of 2019, the entire MLS was at 98.5%. July here for the entire MLS was 98.3%. Then we look at Brentwood, 98.4% in July of 2019. We're at 97.8% in July of 2023. Franklin in July of 2019, 98.7%. Franklin in July of 2023, 98.3%. Nolensville, 99.7%, and right there at 99.1% in terms of July of 2023. So the important thing to keep in mind here is that even though we've watched percentage of list price take this bit of a hump and now you see it coming down, again, we're still not saying it's selling at 80% of list price, 70% of list price. We were actually still very much, for the most part, in line with what happened in July of 2019. So that is another factor that we have to look at and say, this is reassuring that even though we're seeing price drops happen, it's because we're still trying to figure out what the true market value of the home dictates. Because one thing that I've explained before in previous market update videos, but I do believe it's worth sharing again, is that when we look at what happened back when our market went white hot, we have to look at the fact that there was what the market dictated versus what the buyer was willing to pay. So the buyer added their own value onto the home in order to win out in those multiple offer situations. Well, then the market shifted and we've watched the buyer take off that piece, and we're still looking at what the market is dictating. So it is not these dramatic price drops because our market is tanking. It's just we've watched the removal of what the buyer was willing to add to the market value in order to win out in terms of the home. And so now, again, if we're comparing this back to 2019, we're still very much in line with a very healthy, stabilized market. Another statistic that I really want us to take a look at here is going to be percentage of original price. So what was the original list price? What did it drop to? Because that can be where, say, you listed at 1.5 and then you did a price reduction, and then once it reduced, then it sold. And so that's what percentage of list price is. What was the list price when it sold? So again, we do want to take a look at what was the percentage of original list price. So if we're looking at the median here, entire MLS, that's 98.6%, Brentwood, 97.6%, Franklin, 98.9%, Nolensville, right there at 100. And then if we kind of back that up to July of 2019, again, we're still not very far off from these numbers here. Entire MLS in July 2019, 99%, Brentwood, 98.3%, Franklin, 99.7%, Nolensville, 100%. So then let's go to the average. Again, it's just great to see the difference between the two. So again, you can start to see a little bit of a trend here, and you can say, oh, well, it's coming down. But again, we have to take into account with the average, this is going to be factoring in those outlier, I don't want to say problematic, but it's going to be those outlier properties that are taking longer to sell. And when they take longer to sell, obviously those can experience bigger price drops. But again, you can see what these numbers were for July of 2023. We're going to back it out to July of 2019. Entire MLS in 2019 was 97.4% compared to 96.5%. In July of this year, Brentwood was at 97.8% back in 2019 compared to 95.9%. And then Franklin was at 98.1% in July of 2019 compared to 97.1% in July of this year. And then Nolensville was sitting right there at 99.6% back then. It's the exact same this time. So again, yes, we are seeing the average bring down percentage of list price just a little bit. But again, that is going to be taking into account maybe those unique properties that do take longer to sell, which therefore the seller can be more apt to wanting to take a bit of a lower offer to get the deal done. So I also do want to hit on days on market, because I believe this is another important statistic for us to look at. And so this is a great one to take a look at, just because, again, this helps continue to paint the picture. Because when people are coming to me and when they're reading headlines about the real estate market tanking and people having all of these fears, we have to take a look at this, because if we start to see days on market tick up exceedingly, then that might be an area where we have to really keep our eye on what's happening. However, when we take a look at this, the median days on market, we're sitting at 11, 10, 7, 8. So when we have to look at days on market, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that anything that is between 0 months to 5 months is going to be considered a seller's market. Anything that's 5 to 6 months is considered neutral, and then anything that's 6 months plus is going to be considered a buyer's market. So 11, 10, 7, 8, that's still setting well below a month. So you're still going to be very much, this is considered a seller's market, even though it's not the white hot market that we saw. And let's actually compare those days on market to where we were in July of 2019. So as you can see, we're still comparable. There were a few extra days longer if we're comparing it back to what it was in July of 2019. But again, overall, we're really sitting there very comparable to what was happening back then. And then of course, let's flip that over to average days. So this is going to tell us a little bit more. And again, this is taking into account those properties that do sit on the market. And as you can watch, how you can see right here, it was very normal, and it was still below, even in 2018 and 19, most statistics are below 40 days, which still puts us in a seller's market. And then you watch how that shift in our market happened, which is where, you see that downturn, and you can see the uptick. But again, when we look at where we were in July of 2023 and we're comparing that to July of 2019, we're still anywhere between 8, 9, 10 days shy of 10 days less, 8 days less on market, 5 days less than what they were back in 2019. So again, this is all relative. We are by no means seeing this massive downturn in our market. We're still just in a very, we're in a healthy, stabilized seller's market currently. And then the last statistic we'll take a look at is going to be the price per square foot, because this is something that people ask me. And I always like to point out when we're looking at price per square foot is, you're going to have your average and your median based on all price points. But then they're typically for each of these cities, typically there's going to be a threshold where you watch a significant jump or a fairly decent jump in price per square foot once you cross over a certain price point threshold. So let's take a look at all price points overall. And again, we're not, and this again correlates back to our percentage of list price, percentage of original list price. But as we're taking a look at it, again, you're not watching all of a sudden this massive downturn here in terms of price per square foot. So you can see what the average is. This is for single family homes across the board in each of these areas. So you can see what the price per square foot is there. Brentwood, you're sitting at $304 a square foot, Franklin $310, Nolensville $270. Then we switch to the average. And again, we're going to take a look at this. It's got to crunch the numbers, but as we're waiting for the graph to load, there it is. You can see Brentwood, you're sitting at 331 on average, Franklin 343, Nolensville 275. Now, if you're curious about where those thresholds change, in Nolensville, you're really looking at 659 and above. So it'll go from 275 to 280. So not a massive jump, but it is more of a jump than through the other price points. Now, if we're taking a look at Franklin, really Franklin is going to be around that 812 and above. So you'll watch it go from 343 and let the numbers crunch. And then that's where it moves to 373 when you start to cross that 812. Now, that's not to say that if you are in specific neighborhoods that price point is going to be applicable. There's a couple of neighborhoods that I know off the top of my head that are going to be sitting average around between that 8 to 1 million, and that neighborhood's dictating more around the 295 a square foot. So again, you got to take into account that this is going to be averages across the board. And then in Brentwood, that threshold point really is around that 1.1 million. And again, you watch it jump from 331 to 392. So that is something to keep in mind just as we're taking a look at things. And then we will take a look at one more statistic, because again, I think the graphs help give you a good visual. The statistics really tell you the story versus letting headlines tell you the story. If we take a look at month supply here, again, this is going to correlate, and actually I need to reset all price ranges here so that the graph's not even more skewed. So we got all price ranges for single family homes. So again, if we're taking a look at month supply is going to be correlating again with days on market, but month supply means how many months would it take for us if we looked at all active inventory on the market? How long would it take us to clear all of that before we had no more inventory on the market? So with month supply, as of July of this year, for the entire MLS, it's averaging 3.2 months. Brentwood's at 4 months. Franklin's at 3.2. Nolensville's at 3.1. And again, we got to take that back to and just compare it to what we were seeing in July of 2019. And even there, we were seeing, there's some variations. The entire MLS was at 3.8. Brentwood was at 3.7. So just a little bit shyer in Brentwood back then versus now. But again, not a massive amount if we're comparing 3.7 months to 4. Franklin was at 4.3 back then. We're at 3.2 now. Nolensville was at 5.8 then and only at 3.1 now. So again, I hope that going through this and seeing the charts helped give you some more assurance of what's going on in the market. And there's a couple of other things for us to talk about, because you can hear a headline that's like, oh, Nashville inventory up 19% from last year. And while that can be true, and it is true when you're looking at a snapshot, you have to remember what our conditions were then versus what they are now, and how we were still in a more unusual market then versus when you take a look at it now versus 2019. Because actually, if we're comparing inventory from June, because we're still waiting on full statistics on that to come from Greater Nashville Realtors for July, but if we're actually looking at June inventory, we're actually up 30% from the same time last year, but we're actually still down about 2,000 homes from our inventory levels in 2019. So again, I hope that seeing these graphs and these charts were helpful. And there's a couple of other things for us to discuss before we wrap up, but hopefully this helped really give you an accurate idea of just statistically what we're seeing here in the Middle Tennessee area.
Hopefully taking a look at that helped give you a better idea, especially the visual of the graphics, because as you can see, we're not seeing these major drop-offs or these major upticks. We're really seeing what I've been saying is that we're normalizing, we're stabilizing. Like, yes, of course, there's going to be things on a national scale that can impact our local market here. Interest rates are something that people are keeping an eye on. And of course, that can dictate some real estate decisions for sure. But there's a lot that we have to look at when it comes to Middle Tennessee in general, right? So people are asking me, Caitlin, what do you expect? I know that you don't have a crystal ball because I don't, but they're asking me, what do I think is going to happen? And so the best answer that I can give you right now is if we take a look at Nashville in general, we have a lot of local economic factors here that are really working for us, that they don't make us completely immune to something happening on the national scale, but it definitely provides us far more insulation than other more vulnerable cities across the US. So what do I mean by that? So, part of the reason why we saw that massive push come into the Middle Tennessee area during the pandemic was because people were working remote. So then finally they could live wherever they wanted to. And a lot of times people's money is going to go further here than the places that they're coming from. And so even though we are past the pandemic, the reasons why people are choosing to move here haven't really changed all that much. We do have companies that are relocating their headquarters, and they're bringing good paying jobs to the area. In fact, in Williamson County, the average salary amount is right there around $139,000. And so we have companies, they're bringing these good paying jobs, which they're bringing strong talent in with them, whether they're hiring new or bringing those current employees with them. And so we have people continuing to move here. And again, we have another 200,000 people that are expected to move here by 2025. And then we have another 1 million people that are moving to the state of Tennessee by 2040, but 57% of that 1 million is going to be landing in the Middle Tennessee area. So we are going to continue to see that demand of people moving here, which means there's going to continue to be a demand. And as you saw from our graphics, yes, inventory is up a little bit, but we are still down from levels of where we were back in 2019. So we still do not have the inventory to match the demand and the demand that's coming at us. Unless something wild happens, that demand doesn't appear to be going anywhere in the near future. And so we have that working for us. Also, our unemployment rate, we are actually sitting below a 3%. That's below the national average in terms of an unemployment rate. So the people that are coming, they have the good paying jobs and they're staying employed. And so because of these factors, we've got people that are great candidates for housing, that are needing housing. And so again, that help continues to fuel our real estate economy. And then you have to look at other factors like the Middle Tennessee area. Why are people landing here? Again, we've got no state income tax. That means their money's going to go further. Our property taxes are lower, which again makes a big difference for people when they realize that they're not going to get taxed out the yin yang compared to where they're coming from. So you have all of this coming together. Plus, one thing that I continue to hear from people that I talk with is just the values that are here in the Middle Tennessee area. And that is something that is continuing to draw people to the area. And again, unless Tennessee does something kind of wild and everything starts to flip on its head, those reasons why people are moving here aren't going to be going away anytime soon. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to be doing another real estate market update as soon as we get July statistics, because we have had a busy July in the Middle Tennessee area. And again, kids are getting ready to go back to school, but we do typically see another fall real estate market with some more activity that picks up in early fall. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, as well as interest rates. But if you have any questions about the real estate market or making a move to the Middle Tennessee area, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. All of my contact information is below. I also have a free Nashville relocation guide that is chock full of almost anything and everything that you could want to know. And if you are ready to start that conversation about making a move, I do have a Zoom link down below. So go ahead and click that, where you can go ahead and book that discovery call with me. And if you're not quite ready for that, that's okay too. Again, my name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.